And away we go.
And this is Al and Steve, because we're still us, and this is episode 12, part 1. We're going to start talking about the floods that we just had barely a week ago. What more can we say? Well, let's repeat ourselves. Oh, yeah. The food for the day is Torchy's Tacos.
Brought to you by Torchy's Tacos.
Brought to you by Torchy's, yes.
Episode 12. Torchy's Tacos.
Tacos and burritos. Yes. So my points, and I'm repeating myself, and then Steve will add his 2 cents. But point 1 is you got a bunch of mouth breathers. I don't normally use that term, but
maybe
you got
for people who don't know. Oh, let's just stop.
Okay.
There was some flash flooding there. You go ahead and tell me.
Okay. Well, a little bit to the north of where we are, and a lot about 45 minutes south of here, there was flash flooding. Well, we have flash flooding from time to time. That's not the issue. The issue was there were over 100 people lost and unalived. Okay, I'll just throw that out there before we get to anything else. And there's a group of people that says, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible, but we couldn't do anything about it. And they're lying their asses off, okay? Because it is terrible. And yes, some loss of life may have been unavoidable. And yes, the property damage probably was unavoidable. But there were many decisions that could have been done differently and should have been done differently, and are mostly all siphoned around the same group of people, or at least ideologies. And had any of that gone differently, it is my belief that at least some of the lives that were lost would not have been. You probably heard most of this, but to sum up, the Trump administration got rid of most of FEMA, most of the National Weather Organization, and I believe 1 or 2 other groups that directly deal with this stuff. So, in fact, at least 1 or 2 of the key positions that would have been responsible for notifying people of the storm that was coming were removed as recently as April, and those positions have not been backfilled because the people basically took the early retirement that was offered, and nobody filled it in. So there's that. So there's at the high level, but then you got the low level of the county itself. The county itself repeatedly rejected money for the kind of notification systems that would have told everybody in the area, hey, get out of here, something bad's coming.
That money?
Oh, that's the key thing. The first time that the money was offered, it was the Obama administration, and the second time it was the Biden administration. And one could easily argue that in both cases, it was Trump and/or Trump supporters who were saying this stuff about, oh, we don't want to take money with strings attached and all this other crap. And then one additional point for those of you who don't live around here or haven't heard, it's easy to think, oh, well, that's just a Texan thing or whatever. No, the surrounding counties did take that money. It was this one specific county that rejected it.
And that's where the majority of the deaths.
And that's where the majority of the deaths occurred. The point I was going to get to and try and highlight, though, is a lot of the people who died were not from that area. So it's disingenuous to try and say, oh, they got what they deserve or whatever, because 2 things. There were campers, and these were girls about 8 years old. I'm sorry, but they didn't have any say in this, so let's not do that. Right. And then there were, like I said, other campers who came in from other parts of Texas and even other parts of the U.S. They had no say in this. So let's not, victim blame in that sense. And then the last point before I throw it over to Steve and have a bite of my food, it is as obnoxious as what people have done, like the Abbott and various other people. There have been at least 1 or 2 pieces of false information that have started to make the rounds, and that doesn't help anybody, okay? These people they're not good people, they're evil people, but we don't need to put words in their mouth that they're not saying. So let's not do that, folks. And if you want me to, once I've had a bite or 2, I'll just say what that rumor was. Though, honestly, I think it may be perpetuating it for me to even say what it was.
Right. Well, you can think about that while you're eating.
Yeah, right.
You want to keep on repeating that nonsense, but I'm not exactly sure where you're going with that, but maybe you say it. We can talk about it later.
So
yeah, I mean, you covered all of it basically. I'll try to give my 2 cents with, I'll be probably repeating a lot of what you said, but probably in a different way, maybe adding a little bit of this, my own take on things. But so essentially, yes, we had this flash flooding. We get flash flooding all the time. I know that I was getting alerts all day long on Friday and Saturday. According to what I'm understanding is that, people were getting alerts, but where this tragedy occurred, where the most of the fatalities occurred, was an area where it was potentially difficult for them, or maybe they didn't even get these alerts on their phone. Possibly, there's a lot of things that are still unknown right now, at least to me, and I think for others too. I haven't heard anything about, but here's some things that people are saying. It's like, okay, so why weren't they alerted? Why was everybody alerted, and why weren't they? Or were they and they just ignored it? Or what really happened here? But this is what we do know. As Al said, there was money that was allocated for them on several occasions in the past that they denied. And if you watch the videos of them in their town hall and their meetings discussing these things with the local elected officials, they are saying that this is communism and we're not taking this money and this comes with strings attached. And if you watch it, it's really laughable how insane these people are. They are literally fucking insane.
Actually, what's bad is apparently they did take some of the money and then they spent it on things like
armored vehicles
and crap like that.
Right. So here we have these people, right, who aren't willing to take the money to do what they were asked to do from professionals, because there were engineers, there were people who said, okay, if we do X, Y, and Z. They also had things with, it was suggested to have monitors placed along the river so that if the heights got upriver high, they could warn people downriver, hey, this is coming, And like Al said, would this have saved everybody's life? Probably not. Look, everybody knows that catastrophes happen, and even people with the best intentions, doing the best they can under the best circumstance, can make mistakes. But when you have people in place who who are science deniers, ignore professionals, this is part of their modus operandi. This is how these people freaking behave. They don't believe science. They don't believe anything, because they're like, one of the things they're saying in there is Texans take care of Texans. Now they're crying for help. Oh, where's FEMA? Well, you voted for a guy who defunded it. But I want to get to this point. So there was this weatherman. He gets on there, and he's one of these local meteorologists around here, and he's saying, I can't believe these people are these sickos, these sick people who are celebrating these children's deaths. And I just wrote, where? Because if they were, obviously they're wrong. But what I saw was people being extremely critical of the Trump administration, and also even this is unclear. And I made a comment too, because one person had written that well, people from outside of Texas don't understand that we get horrible weather. So and I said, no, people from outside of Texas don't understand why you would vote for people who don't listen to science, who don't listen to experts, and and they're probably quite certain that local officials, and this is the funny thing is, because this all came to fruition, this all came true, what I wrote, probably didn't listen to what to what they were supposed to do, and this is why things like this happen. Because I think the original comment was, this isn't political, and I said something to the effect of, something that can be mitigated. Tragedies happen, but things can be, as Al pointed out, these things can be mitigated. They can't be stopped. The weather can't be stopped, but preparation can be made. And to take people's advice that are experts in these things and allocate the money appropriately. And I said, something like that probably happened. This is all political. I said, to pretend otherwise is not only stupid but dangerous.
Yeah.
And look what happens when you do things like this. So but and the hypocrisy is just so insane, like you said. And then they go and buy these vehicles, or they're okay with giving billions to these banks and to billionaires, and tax breaks, and literally just handing
there was
money.
one decision that I would say was not political, and the camp where the girls were, they made a decision to keep the camp open and whatnot, even though they were told that there could be heavy rains and stuff. I don't think, I'm not going to call that political, and that was a key decision, but that's one of the few decisions that isn't a transparent.
But if they would have got the sirens like they were told, there would have been sirens blaring, and they would have said, like, well, maybe we should get the hell out because there's sirens.
Yeah, earlier than what they did.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't there.
Oh, well, I mean, right.
So, like,
so the piece is fake news. Just to put it.
Hold
out
on,
there.
I'm not finished.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so where was I? So they're the hypocrisy point. And then also people were saying, well, and Al brought out a good point though, that like some of these people are not from that area, but what people don't have a hard time with is when you actively vote for and say things that are hurting other people's children, literally unaliving other children because of the people you vote for and the legislations that they pass, and tear families apart and put them, and then you have these people going into these facilities, these concentration camps, and dying because there's one girl who's on TikTok is saying that they didn't give her dad her medicine and he died. So here you are, 365, 24/7, spitting hate at people. Literally people dying because of your choice to vote for this sociopath who in the past and now currently passing legislation, and all these Republicans do this shit. They defund, they every legislation they do, these consequences end up in death. Every time. So you are actively hurting other people, especially minorities, right? On a daily basis. And then on top of it, you're applauding these alligator fucking whatever they call that place. What's the nickname?
We're calling it Don's Daku.
Whatever.
But alligator Alcatraz, whatever.
Yeah, whatever the hell. They're on there, and they're like applauding this and applauding that. And there was nothing but 2 days of hate before that election. 2 days straight of hatred for their convention, the Republican convention. You guys are the most hate-filled, hate-mongering, and it's all lies. None of this shit is most of this shit is just made up bullshit that you just fucking make up, right? So you wield this at people for this has been on for hundreds of years, but you get my point. Like, these people, you bombard them with hatred all this time, right? And then you vote for people that kill their children, and then you want them to all of a sudden have empathy for you somehow. When not only did you vote against your own self-interest because you could have had those sirens, but you are on a daily basis voting for people who pass legislation that are killing my kids and my community. How am I going to have empathy for you? What do you want from me? I'm putting myself in the position of those people. What do you want from me? Like, it'd be like, oh my God, this concentration camp guy, his family just got wiped out by a bomb that the Allies dropped on his house. Should I have empathy for that? When he's like overseeing the concentration camp? Like, it's difficult, believe me. Now, don't get me wrong. When I saw these parents and their kids, and some of them were from the community, the individual that I saw, and I know this guy voted for Trump, but God damn it, I feel bad for him. I'm like, oh man, I felt sick to my stomach, and I'm like, and especially for the kids, like you said. And even though I know that this guy, he's just too stupid to know what he fucking did. But here's the thing that really bothers me about all this. Do you think they're going to learn a lesson here? No, what they're going to do is when you present them with the evidence and you show them that videotape and they know what they did, that guilt and shame that they're carrying, they're going to project it back on you. They're never going to take accountability. These kind of people never do. Very rarely do people like that will take accountability because the guilt and shame is just too much. And they're just not going to believe it. They've been so brainwashed. Like I said, when you hear these people in this town hall, and what they're saying about the money and how they're saying it's communism and they hate America. Anytime you teach history, anytime you show them the truth about America, you hate America somehow. It's like, you know what? When I do something wrong, right? What I try to do is admit to being wrong and saying that was wrong. I don't hate sort of hate myself, but I get over it. I say, what can I do better and not do it again? But like it doesn't. You're not. But these people can't even do that internally. You think they're going to do that with a nation? And you think they're going to accept the fact that this is based on genocide and slavery and exploitation of labor and capitalism is actually bad and it's just monopolization and exploitation and this so-called like communism that you fear so much isn't so bad if you fucking read a book for a second and understood that if it was democratic that it would actually work. And that's called democratic socialism, and that's what we had for 50 fucking years that got people out of poverty. Like, please, and then they'll say that you're the one who's being indoctrinated because you are the one who's being unindoctrinated, like getting out of these lies and all this indoctrination that happens, you know, as you're going through high school or, you know, all these grades of school. So it's deprogramming to learning somewhat more about what other people's ideas about what happened and not just the white rich guy's idea of what happened. They want you to believe, you know, so they have this, like I said, this attitude, this mindset of like, you know, these people are evil. They hate America because you present them with the truth and they don't like it. And when, you know, anything to do with communism has been demonized. Anything that has to do with capitalism has been, you know, said is so great. And, you know, and of course they don't even understand what capitalism is. They don't understand that it's like owning the means of production. They think it's free trade. Like, free trade.
No, I've seen that over and over.
It's like, dude, no, you're talking about free trade. And that, yeah, you can own a business and you can still be social. You can have a social democracy and own your fucking business. Like, you know, but it's about if you don't have ownership by the people who work there, there has to be taxes levied on
to make up for it.
To make up for it,
basically,
right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can have co-ops that own, you know, part ownership of companies.
There are different ways you can go about it.
Right, so but that's all socialism, people. That's all socialism, you know, unions, all that shit. So, you know, I would, you know, it's just painful. It's really painful. And I think that, like I said, it was this whole thing. You heard it everywhere from both sides even. Don't politicize this. And I think that's the point that I'm trying. It is political. You can't make it.
And again, with one or two exceptions, the more you hear about it and the more you look at it, the more political it actually is. Mm-hmm. So to say that it's not is just going, I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, it's like, I agree that we shouldn't, you know, victim blame and that kind of crap. But beyond that, let's look at what's actually going on so that we don't do it again if we can possibly avoid it.
If you say it's not political and that tragedies happen and there's nothing that can be done about it.
But it couldn't be further from the truth. That's the problem. Yeah.
When these things that are put into place are done by government. You know,
right.
But, you know, it's like, okay, so you don't believe in socialism, but you have a police force. What is
and
that?
A fire force.
A force that you gave that money to.
Yeah.
That's socialism, dude.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, I don't know at this point because, like, you know, we've said this before on so many occasions. They're so far gone. They're so far fucking gone that it's almost impossible to have a conversation with them that doesn't, you know, just get so mind-numbingly stupid and how they sidestep and avoid the conversation, like the actual conversation. But anyways,
well, I had two last.
There was the thing about
two last points. Both hinge on Abbott, you know, governor of Texas.
But did you want to do the?
Yeah, the one of them is that thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first one is a lot of people ask, well, why don't you guys vote them out in Texas? Why don't you vote for better stuff? Blah blah blah. And my standard response is, well, if you understand how gerrymandered things are, but here's why I brought it up. Abbott just called a special session just to try and redistrict again. In other words, to make it to try and you get the idea. I don't even need to explain that. So that's point one about Abbott. Point two about Abbott goes back to the fake news thing. There was a story, and it's true, that Mexico sent up a bunch of people to help with the flood effort. That's true.
Right.
But the fake story is that Abbott tried to stick ice on these guys while they were helping and whatever. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Right.
But there's a badly done AI video that's floating around, and it's really badly done. So it's not just that it's false. It's also not very well done. So I'm wondering, but we need to be careful about that stuff because as much as I hate Abbott, as much as he's anyways, it doesn't help to spread false information. That's my point.
And this is what I think. I don't think that people that are progressives are doing that. I think that it's from the other side, so they can muddy the waters and say it's all fake news.
Well,
And here's the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm gonna just,
Yeah, sorry,
I'm
yeah.
interrupt you, but here's the thing. We've gotten to a point where, like, anything that you present to these people, and this is going back to my conversation I was having a few minutes ago, that they don't like, that disrupts their worldview or their sense of self or anything else, is fake news. Like, to them, well, that's just fake news. It's CNN. CNN's fake news. Even though they're listening to a fucking news station that got sued for $700 million, and it spits nothing but lies 24/7 because they have no discernment whatsoever, right? So anything that comes out of the other side is going to be fake news, right? Look, news is news, and it's real. If it's real, it can come from anywhere. I've heard news that's real on Fox. I've heard news that's real in Newsmax. You know,
Yeah.
even what's her name said there's no Iran had no nuclear. It wasn't getting close enough.
Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard. Like, so.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's real, it's real. It doesn't
Right.
matter.
It
what
doesn't
the
matter
source
who
is.
says it. If it's
It's the discernment of knowing when it is and when it
Exactly.
isn't. Right? So, but you're listening to obviously something that's always fucking lying 24/7, or the slant is so fucked up, or they're eliminating so much of the information that it's all distorted. So you're getting a whole different picture of what actually is happening, right? So, you know, then they'll call CNN out as being fake news. Well, you know, if you're watching CNN today and you're progressive, you see that they're far right. Like, they're right at this point. Like, there is no, like, MSNBC maybe somewhere in the middle, but you know, there's no progressive news source in this fucking country, and that would be at the level that I think, like, you know, you were mentioning something, the British, the UK,
The BBC?
When you watch some of this foreign news, it's a
the Guardian.
and when they're like doing news,
It tends to be better than almost everything else.
Democracy
Yeah.
Now is pretty.
Oh
good.
yeah, definitely.
When you got some, you know, things like this that are like, you know, publicly are not owned by private corporations, you're getting a much more balanced approach to things most of the time. And of course, they'll call that fake news, and they'll say, well, that's, you know. But they'll listen to this corporate-run sponsored media, you know, that has to toe the line to their sponsors and to the corporations and to making money. So how's that ever going to be real, or straight across the board? So, anyways, yeah, this whole concept. So this goes back to what you're saying with these AI, the deep fakes. I believe that it's the right doing that. I believe it's some sickos over there that are doing that, so they can say that anything that you see that these fucking people put out is a lie.
Actually, I do. Let me qualify. The two people I saw sharing it are people that I know, and one of them I corrected him, and he said, "Oh, whoops, you're right." But the people producing the stuff, I think you're absolutely right. The people producing it may be on the right, putting it out not because they're clueless, but they're trying to, you know, disinformation campaign. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I think that's just about where we probably want to wrap.
So, yeah, bottom line is, this stuff, when they try to say it's not political, it's their guilt and shame being projected outward because they know they fucked up once again. They made stupid fucking decisions and people died.